Goals are great, but by themselves, they're useless. In this conversation, industry expert Will Rowe and I sit down to discuss how you can determine what it is you want and reverse engineer or work backwards towards that goal. He boils down his 26 years of industry expertise into practical advice for you, all in this conversation right now. Hey, welcome to this week's episode of Power Talks. My name is Griffin Lickfeld, the host of the Citizen Developer Channel and Power Talks podcast. Today, I'm joined by special guest Will Rowe. Will, thank you for being here. I am particularly excited for this conversation because you work in recruitment. And so I just think that it's an interesting side of the house where a lot of the people that I have on this show and a lot of my world is involved in the development of the delivery. That's the word I was looking for. Like in the delivery side of the house. And, you know, we're all most people are pushing to grow their careers in some way or at least level up and be better at what they do. And I feel like you have your hand on the pulse, I guess, when it comes to that. And so stoked for this conversation. I kind of wanted to ask you, in a world that is like constantly changing, new tech is constantly coming out. Microsoft is selling Copilot more than ever. Or trying to sell Copilot more than ever, I guess I should say. What's the key in your mind to maintaining momentum and staying relevant in the industry?
Well, before I answer that, first of all, thank you for having me here on your podcast. You're one of a very few people who say that they're looking forward to hearing me talk. So I feel this is going very well already. So yes. Staying relevant, I think. So this is how old are you, Griffin?
I am almost 26. I'm 25 years old.
So I have now been working in recruitment for longer than you've been alive, which is a distressing thing, if I'm honest, for me. What we've seen over that period of time is the industry has increased in pace. Technology rollouts have increased in pace. And to the point now that you know I would say it's impossible to stay up to date or ahead of the curve when it comes to technology. So many people that I know burn out because they're trying to do that. And I think for me, one of the most important things is to be specific about what it is that you want to do next, and then to come up with a plan of what it is that you're going to do and how you're going to get there. And I think in the short term, almost treating it like sprints, in the short term, having, specific things that you're looking to achieve and specific things that you can learn. And then if, for example, you're not enjoying what you're doing, that gives you the opportunity then to sort of move on to something slightly different. In the medium to longer term, though, I think one of the biggest challenges that anyone has is working to retain that motivation to change, because change now is something I'm terrible with. You've only got to ask my wife about that. But don't ask my wife, Griffin. But I think having that motivation to actually say, okay, what I'm starting with now isn't necessarily what I'm going to be doing in 2 or 3 years. When I started in recruitment, we had very clearly defined career paths within technology areas. If we're looking across sort of the M365 stack, it would be Exchange or SharePoint. It would be infrastructure before Azure came along. It would be data center technologies. And you would find people would become a specialist in an area of that, and that would see them through 5, 10, sometimes longer, 15, 20 years of their career. But that change now is daily, really, or month by month. You've only got to look at the latest updates on what's coming on in the roadmap for Copilot to see exactly, all of the new things that are coming. And I think also as well, particularly if you're focused on Microsoft's technologies, they're trying to sell as much as possible. So they create a bubble of interest and excitement in their partners. This is the big thing. And then those partners and the MVP community create that excitement in end customers. And then you'll have 2 or 3 years of riding that wave, sometimes a little bit longer. And then it's on to the next thing. You've only got to look back at Viva, for example, as a product set. No one really talks about that now because we had the year of Viva, and now we're on to Copilot. And there'll be something next year or the year after, which is different because everyone's either got Copilot or aren't going to use Copilot or what have you. And I think having that motivation, coming back to your question, because I'm aware that I'm rambling, coming back to that question is it's having that motivation to basically keep going. And I speak to people at all stages within their career, from green whippersnappers such as yourself through to people who are reaching that point where they're in their sort of their 50s, coming into their 60s. They're considering retirement. What should we be doing? And I think everybody reaches a point in their career at some point where they realize that they either can't physically stay technical and they need to move into something different, or they then have some hard decisions to make as to, can I keep that momentum going until the point that I kind of hang up the tools?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I would say that would be the main thing. In the short term, have short-term sprint-like goals of what you want to achieve in the short term, but in the medium term, it's being aware that everything that you do needs to be focused on staying relevant in a world where the technology changes and shifts so quickly.
Yeah. I mean, I agree, and I mean, I even, so it was a little over a year ago now when Microsoft introduced Copilot, and pretty quickly after that, Copilot Studio. And I can remember like the wave of people where it's like all of a sudden everybody had like Copilot expert in their LinkedIn headers, like all of a sudden. And I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't shift a lot of my content towards Microsoft Copilot and Copilot Studio as well. So I'm not, I'm not above all of this. But something that I guess I try to talk about is kind of like, because there was that podcast where like somebody had said that like Dynamics or Power Apps was dying and it's all just going to be agents at some point and like all that stuff. And I can't remember off the top of my head who said it and when, but like it was this idea that like, oh, businesses better watch out because Power Apps and Dynamics are a thing of the past. Now it's just going to be agent chatbots. And I don't know, I feel different because I feel like there are still businesses who are using like on-prem servers and need to be moved to the cloud, like
Yeah,
that is so far in the future, like. And I try to remember that, like, to tell, like, I try to tell people as well, like, remember, like, Microsoft is selling this stuff, like they're gonna make it feel like everybody's using it and that it's so incredible and ready to revolutionize everything about your business right now. Just turn it on for $30 a month. um like, that
get
we
your
need to
data
remember
sorted
to
first.
take it
Get
through
your
that
data
filter.
sorted first, though. Yeah,
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I just think it's an interesting dynamic. Where do you feel like we are? You mentioned that things come and go and come and go and over this time. Where do you feel like we are in this bell curve, I guess, of Copilot and Copilot Studio?
I think we're still very much on the way up. Um, coming back to your point, I mean, I remember when Power Apps was brought out, and how that was going to be the thing that killed software engineering, and then I remember when Copilot was released, and ChatGPT came out, and then suddenly everyone was scrabbling to bring out their own AI tool, and Copilot came out, and it was ugly, and it didn't do a lot. But AI is going to kill software engineering, and now we've got vibe coding, and now apparently we've got vibe working, which is a whole new thing. I'm not comfortable with that term, if I'm totally honest, but there are all of these things. I just don't think that the world lives in the extreme. I think, I build custom agents, and I do some stuff in ChatGPT. I don't have Copilot because at the end of the day, I'm a small recruitment company, and I don't necessarily see the need for it at this point. But I know that at some point we'll probably switch it on, and we'll probably start working with it, but it has never felt that it's been good enough yet to kind of warrant spending an extra, $30 per user, each time. There's a long way to go, and it's not necessarily just the technology, it's the people. User adoption is critical, and if you're not, you can pay all this money and you can switch on Copilot, but if the way that people work doesn't change, then how is that gonna, what's that gonna do for Copilot? Because all right, Microsoft is going to get the licensing, which is obviously really what they're most interested in, so they can lay off more people. But then, it really is it's about how it's used and how it sort of moves with the times.
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
You're making sense.
It's got a long way. It's got a long way to go. I think before, for me, all right. So for me as a business owner, right, if someone has to explain to me what I should be doing with a product, that's not really going to be a product that I'm going to be that enthused about. If it's something that I have to use on a day-to-day basis because of the fact that it just makes sense and it all works, that is probably the point that I'll start doing something. But what I really want is, I want autonomous agents that are going to take over parts of my business that I have to sort of split myself in 2 or 3 or 4 to sort of manage, be that from a finance and accounting perspective, be that from invoicing, be that from, from a sales and development perspective, from, doing elements of that to run autonomously. And I'm pretty sure that it can't do that yet. We're talking about autonomous agents coming out, but they're not there quite yet. At that point, who knows? I'll probably suddenly become the greatest I'll be literally sitting there going like this. I love Copilot, and you'll see videos of me pop up on LinkedIn. I'll be going, I always knew I'd like Copilot, and forget, and this particular, this podcast will be deleted from my memory, and I won't remember it at all. So
that's funny. Going back to the concept of like staying relevant. So say you're talking to me or other people in the industry who are trying to, still see a lot of runway in their careers and are trying to grow and maybe make more money. Like, what do you feel like is the thing to focus on to stay relevant? Is it Copilot? Is there a new thing that people should be focusing on? Obviously, it's different for every person and their passions and whatnot, but like, what do you see as the thing? It's like, hey, maybe attaching yourself to this if you enjoy it would be a smart move.
That's such a broad question, because we specialize within broad Microsoft technologies. So we'll cover Azure, for example, and obviously within Azure you've got infrastructure, you've got storage, networking, DevOps, you've got security compliance when it comes to Azure. Then obviously we've got the data side of it, then AI within Azure, and then we also cover 365. And so obviously you've got all the sort of the usual technology stack that sits under that, and then the Power Platform, and then obviously you've got Power Platform, and then we've got security compliance just in general that covers across all that, using Purview or the Defender Suite or Sentinel. Everyone's different, and it's, I was having a conversation just this week. Someone said, what's the hot technology? I genuinely couldn't say at this point. If you go back to the pandemic, it was any technology that would allow an organization to shift to remote working. And we had a couple of years, which was lucky because that was my area of specialism. And so that kind of, it consolidated 5 to 10 years of organizational change down into about 2 years. And Microsoft Teams was huge, 365 was huge. And now we've come out of the other side of that, and we've had a period where organizations have sort of said, right, okay, well, we're not going to expand. We're just going to sit and let's see. We've seen redundancies come and go from big tech through to sort of smaller organizations. What I think the most important thing is for somebody to find stuff that they enjoy and then just keep an eye on what the market is doing. Because if you're sitting as an Excel spreadsheet specialist currently, I would be nervous as hell, genuinely, because that as an area, Copilot's just brought out a load of agent work within Excel, which is just it's just gonna take that role away. Always having one eye on, is there something coming up or coming down the line which is going to create a market shift? And you don't want to be the first person into the room, but you want to be somebody who's kind of at the forefront. We saw Dynamics Contact Center come out in the last 12 months, and that was kind of nowhere really beforehand. And there are Microsoft have been pushing it. They've been they've been creating an MVP community within that. It's kind of aligned to voice. It's kind of aligned to Power Platform, but nobody, the technologies, as frequently happens, the technologies just don't align. So they've been trying to attract people from the voice side into the model-driven app side of things to be able to learn that, because that's basically what the product is. Because most Power Platform people or Dynamics people won't have that experience of voice, and it's much more complex, to learn. Whereas people going the other way, it kind of makes sense. I think that's new, that's interesting, but no one's really selling it yet. Not mass selling it. It's starting to come to the market, but it's got a lot of competition from other places. But it just depends very much on what it is that you do and kind of where you are. Obviously, for a lot of the people that are listening to this podcast, Copilot Studio is becoming more and more in demand. Finding people that have got that experience, who can be building agents and extended agents through Copilot Studio. I think that's going to be probably where the next layer of demand is. But it's a constant wave coming in and breaking on the shore, and you want to ride the wave in and then go find another one, and then ride the wave in and then go find another one.
If you are liking the conversation, be sure to let me know by liking the video and commenting down below what it is specifically you are getting out of it. And if you are interested in learning more about the Microsoft Power Platform, you're going to want to click on the first link down in the description down below to get access to a beginner's Power Platform guide led by me. This is a completely free, self-paced course that has hand-picked knowledge, everything that you need to know to be able to go and get your first Microsoft certification as soon as possible. The reality is not a lot of people can say they love what they do, and I feel very blessed to be able to say that I enjoy what I do for work as a Microsoft consultant. And if you want to start that journey alongside me today, be sure to follow and click on the first link down in the description down below. Now let's get back to the conversation. That makes sense.
So
Yeah, I got you. What kind of on the same concept of feeling stuck, staying relevant, that person that considers himself an Excel spreadsheet expert, what advice would you have for that person? And I get you kind of answered this, but maybe more what I'm getting at is, you mentioned that early in your career, you made the mistake of waiting for someone else to help advance your career. I'm sure there's a story here. I'd love to hear more if you're willing to share, but like, what kind of advice from that experience you had and everything else that we're talking about staying relevant, what advice would you have for, say, someone like me?
a lot of it depends on the organization you work for. Most organizations will train you to do the things that they need you to do, not necessarily to equip you with the skills that will allow you to stay relevant to what's going on in the marketplace. There was a period in my career where I was just waiting. I think I was waiting for someone, I was working, I was doing all right, but I was waiting for somebody to turn around and go, Will, you're fantastic. Because I've always known that. But for someone to turn around and say, you're great. Let's give you a team of people. Let's invest in you. And there's a group of people who in their jobs, I think, feel entitled to that. And I'm not saying that they're not, but nobody is going to give you the keys to the kingdom. You have to do more, and you have to go out and, when it comes to your own professional development, when it comes to your learning, both from a technical hard skills through to soft skills, because that's as important as the sort of the technical skills, that ability to sort of talk to people, engage in the more commercial conversations, perhaps, I'm not saying sales particularly, but a way to help generate revenue for an organization, those sorts of skills. You have to do that yourself, because the people that really get ahead are the ones who say, right, I'm going to do more. That is a really, really powerful thing, because if you're sitting waiting, then you're powerless. You can sit, you can complain about the market, you can complain about the fact your job is being outsourced, you can complain about the fact that technology is coming to steal your job, but that doesn't get you anywhere. What you have to do is you have to figure out what you want to do next, and that's often the biggest challenge, because people look at the whole thing and they say, okay, I want to be this, but I have no idea how to get there. And so figuring out, all right, if that's what I want to do, working it back into a plan of, okay, I need to study, and I need to fit that into my life, and I need to then get certifications, and then I need to start working to move towards that goal. There's a guy that I know quite well, his name's Gregor Suttie, and Gregor is an Azure MVP, and he was a C# developer, and he decided he wanted to learn Azure. Didn't know anything about it, and he basically gave away his Xbox and to his mate, who was very happy. And he said that he was going to every night spend 2 hours learning. That was it. He'd finish his job and he would spend 2 hours every night for 3 months. And over that period of time, he started creating learning guides and sharing those. He started blogging about what he'd been doing. He started creating video content about that. And this guy that no one had heard of, by the end of 3 months, had created such a following that he was nominated for Microsoft MVP, and got it within sort of the following 6 months. We have to. I'm not saying everybody should do that, because, I mean, I'll have an Xbox, if somebody wants to give that to me. But if there is there are always things that we can be doing extra, but we've got to push ourselves to do that extra bit. Like you were working in retail, right? And you then went to work for Hitachi. How did you get there?
Yeah, okay, you must have been doing some LinkedIn research on me. Yeah, when
Mate,
I was
you know what I mean? I'm not.
when I was in
I always knew this was going to be a two-way street. Do you know what I mean?
when I was in college, I worked at a men's warehouse, which for anybody not in the United States is a suit shop. So I worked there and sold people suits and ties and dress shoes. And really just worked there part-time while I was going to school and whatnot. Um, and I wish I could say I had a really cool jump to Hitachi because of that experience. That wasn't it at all. I was studying accountancy in college, and pretty much in my last semester was like, I can't be an accountant. I think I would hate this. Um, but I enjoyed kind of the numbers and technical aspect of it, like the math and the everything being yes and no, and like, okay, this is right, this is wrong, this, whatever. Nonetheless, really through a friend, found out about Hitachi, who worked at Hitachi, completely different role, non-technical role. But I was talking to him, and he was like, "Hey, you might be good at this like Power Platform consulting thing, you know." And one thing led to another, where I got my foot in the door there. Um, is kind of what that looked like for me. And but to your point of what you're saying is, I think I recognize that posting on LinkedIn or having a YouTube channel or podcast is not for everybody, right? So I think it would be wrong to say like, you want to make more money, post on LinkedIn. Like that, I think that would be wrong, right? That's not the right thing for everybody. But something that is just a fact at this point is, with all of us working remotely, you you kind of have to respectfully brag about how good you are or what you do well, because people aren't they're not seeing you work in the office. They're not watching, oh, you did this or you did that or whatever. Like, you kind of have to remind people, and build your brand in some way. And for me, that has been on LinkedIn and on YouTube with various formats, right? And I may not be any more qualified than the next person on building Copilot Studio agents, but because people have seen a whole host of tutorial videos on how to, answer a specific question about their agent in Microsoft Copilot Studio, they reach out to me because they feel like I'm an expert, and I definitely think I know a lot about it, but like, that they wouldn't reach out to me if I wasn't putting all of that online, and doing that extra work to help almost sell myself in a way to people online, to help kind of like solidify, like, okay, Griffin does know what he's talking about, you know
It's the TripAdvisor effect. You want people to
elaborate.
be, well, you want, so LinkedIn in itself, right? LinkedIn is not a social network at all. It's a micro marketing tool, and basically what it gives you is the opportunity to build an online presence and a deeply horrific term, personal brand, which allows you to market yourself to the people around you. And if it's done well, then you can build a network of people who are your fans, your cheerleaders, people that, when they're the ones that are going to be talking about you on your behalf. And I think everybody should be doing this to some extent as part of their their career, because the the good jobs are the ones where people want, that recruiters like me won't even hear about. The first thing that people say is, does anyone know someone who can do this? And so if someone has seen you putting stuff up online, if on LinkedIn, if they've seen your blog or your podcast or what have you, or your YouTube channel, or dare I say, you've been TikToking. But
Don't
if all,
TikTok.
mate, come on, everyone should be on TikTok. I love it. It's the biggest waste of my time, but I love it. I've got
Here, real
stuck.
quick, I spend my fair share of time on Instagram Reels. All right, so
Okay,
it's the
look,
same
I'm not.
thing, but I like to think
I
I'm
steer
better because
clear
I
of
don't
Meta.
have TikTok.
I steer clear of Meta because they're the devil. But I got stuck on mushroom talk, right? So literally, I walk my dog every morning. You've seen him wandering around behind me. I've got a spaniel, and I walk my dog every morning in this forest. And so we've been finding all these mushrooms and stuff, and I love a bit of foraging. So I've been gathering mushrooms every day, and so you search on TikTok for, is anyone else looking for mushrooms? So, oh god, I can't believe I'm talking about this. Anyway, so let's going back to the TripAdvisor effect. You won't go to a hotel these days without checking the reviews, right? And by creating something on LinkedIn which allows people to see what you do, it's that try before you buy thing. It gives greater credibility, because that's what a personal brand does. It builds trust in you and provides credibility for you to people who have never seen or spoken to you before. And I just took a couple of months off LinkedIn because I was just done. I get to that point, sometimes, and I was looking at it, and I was just seeing all these people bragging about all of how good they were, and I was sitting there going, "Well, Will, you're shit," and I was done. I was like, "Oh my god, I need to take some time out," and I had a holiday. I came back, and I posted saying, I was pretty much burnt out, and all these people have come out and they've just been saying, it's so nice to have you back. And I was like, well, that is nice. I mean, they didn't have to say that, and I know most of them were lying because I'd send them a check every month. But it's nice. You get a nice community of people. And I think as well, just coming back to what we were talking about around sort of upskilling and what have you, finding a community is one of the most underrated parts of personal development. The Microsoft tech community is massive, and it's one of the most embracing and friendly places that I know. And I've gone from sort of walking into a room as a recruiter and people sort of staring at me as if to say, who the hell is this guy, through to actually being gently mocked by my friends that I've made in this area. But find a community of people who are already doing what it is that you want to do, because when you find those people, one, they'll be talking about all the stuff that you want to learn about to get, you want to be those people, so you can learn and move towards that. And two, they give you support, because learning something new, particularly if you're sort of pivoting into a new or a different area, it's really hard, and the older you get, the more difficult it is to pivot into something new and start again. So you often get a lot of support from those communities. Plus, from a networking perspective, they are also doing the job that frequently you want to be doing. So they'll know, they'll be the people that people ask, do you know anyone? Well, there's this guy Griffin who we've seen, we think that could be good. Mate, before I carry on, is Griffin your given name, or did you like, were you sitting there
Griffin
playing
is my
D&D
name.
one day and you killed a Griffin and you thought, you know what, that's a much cooler name than Trevor?
No, okay, that is so funny you say that. My little brother's name is Trevor. That is
Okay, well,
hilarious.
but that is a much
No,
cooler name.
I was born.
Do you know what I mean? You can tell him from me.
I was born. That's fine. I was born with the name Griffin. I will say my name, it is spelled different than like a griffin, but nonetheless, like, it's funny. Okay, now we're really just hanging out. It's funny you say that. When I was like a kid, I didn't like my name because nobody else had it, And when you're a kid, you want to be just like everybody else, You don't want to be different in any way. So I was like, I just want, call me Jack or whatever, who cares? But that never really stuck or anything like that. Um, but now that I'm older a little bit, I like my name. It's good. It's different.
Mate, you've grown into it. Do you know what I mean?
It's not like, it's not one of those names that's like impossible to spell or like people always mispronounce it, But it's different and unique enough where I really only know like one or two other Griffins,
Are
so
there? Because I've
it's
never known anyone with a name of Griffin.
really,
I mean,
that's
no.
funny. But yeah, that is me. That is my name. Yeah.
Okay. Trevor must be pissed. He's sitting there going, "Oh, Trevor." Call me Wyvern. Do you know what I mean? Something like that. That would just be my hunting.
I don't even know where we were. I don't even know where we were. That's so funny though. But yeah, no, that is that. And
community. We were talking about community.
Yeah, I mean, I agree as well in a couple of things. One is, I mean, I am very biased. I think creating content online is really special. And one thing that like I didn't first consider is like this show. I don't think it would really like blow anybody away with like the viewership or anything like that, but I've recently been really happy with it in that like we pretty much have 100 to 150 people that listen to every episode, which is like, now that I started to think about it, and that's across platforms, so that's not all just on YouTube. But like when I think about it, I'm like, man, that is a ton of people sitting here hanging out with me every week for 45 minutes. And to you listening, thank you so much. I will say though, like
They're not going to be listening
most
after
of
this
these
one,
people,
Griffin. We've screwed
most
it.
most of these people, I maybe have never even talked to in person, right? Or like online, or actually had a conversation with, but they very much see me as maybe um, like an expert, or if anything, a friend, right? Because they have spent so much time with me. And I mean, if you're listening, hit me up. I would love to sit down and chit chat with you about whatever. But like, there's something about that, in that there's like, what's the marketing term where it's like, people need to see you like 10 times before they buy, or something like that, right? Like, it's kind of that same concept, in that like, one of the underlying reasons why I pursue creating content online is so that people are spending time and seeing me, seeing how unique the name Griffin is, whatever. Like,
Absolutely.
they're spending time with me. So then when the time comes, say, for me to work with them on a project, or for them to need coaching, or just to write me an email for some advice on how they could handle something, like, we already have a relationship, and I'll put it in air quotes. You know what I mean? Like, and so I just think, as far as community goes, it's been huge, because even just like things I'm working on, or um, several weeks ago, when this comes out, I switched jobs. Like, it was my network that allowed me to find the best and right opportunity for me.
Yeah.
And so having that available because of this has been insurmountable. Like, it's just been huge. So
Yeah, I
been
totally get that. And people see you as a friend. I mean, they've referred to me as the Mother Teresa of the recruitment world on several occasions. Um, that's normal. I get that wherever I go. It's my thing is this. I wanted to be an actor when I was younger, and I was, and I did a degree in drama, and then I took a job in the Caribbean, or if you would say Caribbean, and we were basically, I've did a number of jobs, and then I got into recruitment, um, and it just clicked for me. There's not a lot of people who are in this industry for as long as I am and still doing the job. They've usually been far more successful, and they've now got teams of people to do the work. Whereas me, I think I'm a sucker for punishment. Um, but it really is, the way the world is now means that I can kind of pull on the bits that I've always enjoyed, which is making videos, and I love making people laugh. For me, that's one of the things, and I always try and use humor in some way, shape, or form in the content that I produce, right down to what is sadly known as Dad Joke Friday, which is literally, that's just because no one does anything on LinkedIn on a Friday. You can post stuff on there, and it's like shouting into the void. No one is paying attention. So I thought, right, well, I'll just do Dad Joke Friday, and people actually quite like it. And they're really bad. But so I'm always aiming for terrible jokes on a Friday, and people actually quite like them. As you get older, Griffin, you'll hit that age where dad jokes suddenly become like really cool, and it just, for the old crumbly over on this side of the, of this side of the pond, it's definitely there. So so yeah.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit more about how you got into recruitment? I'm excited to just hear more about your
Mate,
story a little bit.
it's not a good story. I used to sell double glazing windows in conservatories when I was younger, and we didn't get given a salary. We were just on commission, and I was driving around the southeast of England, going to appointments and walking in and trying to sell double glazing windows. Now, here in the UK, it's not seen as a great profession. It's often seen as a terrible profession, whereby cutthroat young men walk into your house and try and sell you things that you don't really want, and then they beat up old ladies and steal their china on the way out. Um, and I walked into this, and that wasn't me, of course. I was very nice, very friendly. Don't know
Got to put
why
that
you want to
disclaimer
say
out
that.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And none of those old ladies would still be alive anyway to prove me wrong, so that's okay. But But I went into this guy's house back in 1998, which is before you were born, Griffin. Before you were born. God damn
Yes.
it. Anyway, so went into this guy's house. He was living in London, and he had a snowboard. And back then, he had a DVD-ROM, and he had Starship Troopers on it, and it was on 2 discs because you had to take one out halfway and put the other one back in, and for the second half. I mean, this is how far back we're going. And I was used to VHS videos, but at that point, I was sitting there going, "Oh my God!" I'd never sent an email by this point in my life, by the way, just for context. This is how far back we're going. And the guy said, I said, "What do you do?" He said, "Well, I'm a recruiter." And I said, "What the hell is that? Never heard of this." And he said, "Well, he kind of broke it down a little bit. And he said, but I'm a salesperson. You're never going to close me into a sale, mate." And 40 minutes later, I walked out of there with a sale. And I thought to myself, well, he wasn't very good at not buying things. I reckon I could be all right with this. So I interviewed in a couple of places, and I was really, really fortunate, like truly fortunate, to get hired by a guy called Jake King, who is still a really good friend of mine today. And he runs a one-man recruitment business called Ambis, and look him up on LinkedIn. He calls himself the king of recruitment. He's not, but and he was just, it was one of those relationships that I think sometimes you find, you don't realize it at the time, but these are the people who really move you forwards in your career, and they become a mentor to you and a friend, and they're frequently the ones that are cheerleading you all the way. So yeah, and that was what it was. And I was really arrogant and aggressive and just a terrible person back then. And I remember walking onto the sales floor and having sort of 18, 19 people turn around and look at me. And I was introduced, and they said, "Have you got something to say, Will, to introduce yourself?" I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna make more placements than any person in here." And that was my introduction to the sales floor. And I was universally hated for about 1.5 years. But I think that just provided me the energy and the enthusiasm to keep going when it got really, really tough. So yeah, that was it, mate.
Man, what
Yeah.
what a journey. That's pretty cool though as well, just to hear like how you've changed as a person too. I don't.
Well, I needed to, because no one liked me. Do you know what I mean? So this isn't me. This is just this is just like a soft exterior. The bastard is still inside me. That's what it is. You just ask my son. I'm just like, "Oh, get out there and do some exercise," stuff like that.
Sure. No, that's pretty unique though. That you how you stumbled into recruiting. That's pretty special.
I don't think no one wakes up one morning and thinks, I am going to become a recruiter.
But you did.
Everyone.
But you
No,
did.
no. Like, when you're a kid, no one sits there and goes, "What do you want to do?"
Yeah.
"I'm going to become a recruiter." No, it's astronaut, it's fireman, do you know what I mean? It's all of this sort of stuff. And then when you realize that you don't have a lot of marketable skills, that you're probably not focused enough to learn a great deal of things, and when you drank your way through university and came out the other side with a mostly pickled liver, going, "Well, what does my drama degree get me?" Not a great deal. So I obviously had to go into sales because that's the only place that people go. I had to
Oh
go
my
into a
goodness.
sales environment because I had no real skills. I could talk. That's basically it.
This guy. Oh my goodness. Okay, we are about at time. At the end of every episode, we have our after hours happy hour segment of the show where we talk about anything and everything outside of work and some other things we're passionate about. I feel like you've given me so many little nuggets into what your life looks like. I know, dad joke Fridays and walk the dog in the forest and hopefully not eating random mushrooms, but you're educated enough to pick the right ones, I
They
guess.
haven't
And
killed me yet.
so funny. Will, man, what are some other things about you outside of work or some hobbies that you have, man?
I I don't like to talk about my charity work, but I will. There's So every couple of years I'll do an ultra marathon. I lost my dad back in 2020 to dementia, and so I raise money for the Alzheimer's Society here in the UK. And so I go and do that, and it means that, you know, the body that ice cream built, I get to slim down a little bit, and then move on. But I don't run them; I walk them. But it's like 100 kilometers, you know, 65 miles, something like that, in 24 hours. So I do stuff like that. I love being outside. We live in the southeast of England, in a place called Kent, and it's quite rural here. So I get to go and spend my morning in a forest and my evening in a forest walking the dog, and I find that from a mental health perspective is really useful. Um, I'm married. I've got a son who's 14, who's I'm 6'2", and he is a centimetre shorter than me, and he's 14. And I just know for a fact that he, come Christmas time, will be the same height as me, or even taller. He's grown 6 inches this year,
Oh
and
my goodness.
I know. And I was just I actually said to him the other day. I said, the best thing that could possibly happen to me in my whole life is if you stopped growing now, and you were always just a centimetre shorter than me. Because he is like I'm the tallest in the family. He's gonna be the tallest in the family. But I've been undermining his confidence for so long now that he's just started walking with a slump. So, you know, like hunched over. So that way, you know, I just keep him, you know, I'll just get worse as the years go by, you know.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah,
that's so fun.
so that's kind of me. What about you?
I will say too, getting outside is I love being outside as well. And right now, this corner of my super professional looking background and office
Mm,
is really just a corner in a basement. Um, and so I it's basically a dungeon, a lair, where I'm down here hermiting
your
for
fortress of
what feels like
solitude.
12 hours a
Yeah,
day. Yeah. And so I love to just take my laptop and sit out in the backyard, or even just like go to a local coffee shop for 4 hours and work half a day there, just to like get out of the house. I found has been it helps break up the monotony of like sitting right here looking this way, for so long. And I also find it helps me just be more productive as well. Because like come Thursday afternoon, come Friday, I've been sitting here for who knows how long, and I'm kind of over the work week and ready to be done. So then I just end up scrolling on Instagram Reels. All right, no TikTok.
sure,
Um,
totally.
you know, and end up wasting a bunch of time. But I don't do that if I like go out, so go to the coffee shop or whatever. Like it helps me, continue to get stuff done and push things forward. So I mean, I totally hear you, because I feel like it definitely helps me just um I guess in my productivity and creativity to get out and go do things.
I
So
think I think it's one of those things which, because we switched to more remote working, mental health is so important, and it's one of those things which, you know, certainly people don't tend to talk about a great deal. Um, but actually being able to get outside and go and go and actually get fresh air and exercise, it really does help, certainly for me, balance me out. And I'm doing 4 or 5 miles a day, you know, out and about,
wow.
and sort of doing
Yeah.
things, and that's good, you know. But I need that, because if I don't, I won't leave the house. Well, I mean, the dog would kill me literally. But it I need to be out and doing stuff, because otherwise, you know, I find myself climbing the walls, and then I just get depressed. So,
Sure.
you know, and there's only so much alcohol you can drink to get rid of that, you know, particularly in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, sure. No, you
um
obviously didn't.
Well, man, thank you so much for the time and the expertise you've shared. If people were listening to this conversation and wanted to work with you or get in contact with you, or just um let you know to keep going and encourage you, what would be the best way for them to get in contact with you?
LinkedIn is the best place. Yeah, I'm always more than happy to have a chat with people. What I will say is that my friend Sarah Jones, who's been on the podcast before, she's just set up a career coaching business. So if people are actually looking for more sort of formalized career coaching, have a chat with Sarah. She's well equipped, possibly more well equipped for people within the Power Platform space. But yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn, and I just apologize for all of the video content that you'll see, frequently involving lycra, and some very awkward humor.
That's so funny.
So yeah.
I will say, I can attest, I have seen them, and when you deliver punchlines, you definitely hold that silence really long, of like you're waiting for the laughing sound in the background of the video or something. So
It's just the silence.
I get a good laugh.
Silence is the most awkward thing. It is terrible. So yeah,
that's so funny. Well, sweet man, I'll be sure to have a link to your LinkedIn down in the description down below, so people can get in direct contact with you. Well, thank you so much for being here, and thank you to you for sticking to the end of the video. My name is Griffin Lickfeld, the host of the Citizen Developer channel on Power Talks podcast, and I'm excited to connect with you in the next one.